Our sermon series is about couples in the Bible. We've talked about Adam and Eve, we talked about Abraham and Sarah, now we talk about Isaac and his wife Rebekah. This is a longer passage, and I chose it though because it's important for several reasons. This passage, first of all, introduces an important literary pattern in the Bible, and that is that when a man and a woman meet at a well, we think of marriage. Rebekah is met at a well, and that's how she becomes married to Isaac. Jacob and Rachel meet at a well, and that's how they are married. So in John chapter 4, when Jesus meets the Samaritan woman at the well, every Jewish reader would have thought about marriage and these two stories. That's an important background for that passage of Scripture. This story also tells us a few things about the character of Isaac and Rebekah. First, it's a sort of character test for Rebekah. The test is one of compassion, whether she will offer water to travelers who need it. And then the other thing it tells us, and it tells us this by omission, is that Isaac is a fairly passive fellow. This is the romance between Isaac and Rebekah, and Isaac isn't in it. Listen for the word of the Lord. Now, Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his house, who had charge of all that he had, put your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I live, but will go to my country and to my kindred and get a wife for my son Isaac. The servant said to him, perhaps the woman may not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came? Abraham said to him, see to it that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and swore to me, to your offspring I will give this land, he will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must not take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all kinds of choice gifts from his master. He set out and went to Aram Naharaim, to the city of Nahor. He made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water. It was toward evening, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. I am standing here by the spring of water, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. Let the girl to whom I shall say, please offer your jar that I may drink, and who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. Before he had finished speaking, there was Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, coming out with her water jar on her shoulder. The girl was very fair to look upon, a virgin whom no man had known. She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, please let me sip a little water from your jar. Drink, my lord, she said, and quickly lowered her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw for your camels also until they have finished drinking. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw, and she drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. Then the servant arranges the marriage with her parents, and they send her back to where Abraham lives and where Isaac lives. And it says, so they sent away their sister Rebekah and her nurse, along with Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, may you, our sister, become thousands of myriads. May your offspring gain possession of the gates of their foes. Then Rebekah and her maids rose up, mounted the camels, and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebekah and went his way. Now Isaac had come from Beer Lahai-roi and was settled in the Negeb. Isaac went out in the evening to walk in the field, and looking up, he saw camels coming. And Rebekah looked up, and when she saw Isaac, she slipped quickly from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is the man over there, walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself, and the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent. He took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. This is the word of the Lord. Okay, it's personal confession time. This happened a long time ago, in my defense. I was 18, and I had just gone off to college in San Diego in a new place and had made a group of friends. And one night, this group of friends went out to the beach, and we played catch with our frisbee until the sun set. And when the sun had gone down, I started to walk along the beach with a young lady. She took my arm, and she looked me in the eyes, and she said, "You know, I've never been kissed." And I said, "Oh." And after a long pause, I added, "I'm sure you will be someday." I had no idea what was happening to me until later, as I thought about it for many hours and talked to my friends, who then informed me what had happened. And I bring that story up not just so that you'll laugh at me, but so that you know that what I am about to say about Isaac comes not from a place of judgment, but of sympathy. Isaac and Rebekah marry, but this is all arranged for Isaac. It's as if Abraham, his father, knows that Isaac is not really the ladies' man, that he's probably not going to go out and get a wife for himself. So Abraham has to send his servant to arrange all of this for him. And this is a pattern. This is a pattern in Isaac's life. If you read through the Genesis narrative, you see that Isaac is passive and quiet, silent. He is not ambitious. He's not adventurous. Think about when Isaac and Abraham go off to the mountain. Abraham takes Isaac to be sacrificed, and tradition holds that Isaac is a grown man when this happens. He's not a little boy, but he is a full-grown adult. The only thing Isaac says during this journey is, "Hey, Dad, where is the lamb?" And when his father assures him, "Oh, don't worry about it," Isaac is silent. And when his father takes him to the altar and lays him on the piece of wood, Isaac is silent. He is passive. He is accepting. Isaac never travels away from the land where he grows up. He never has adventures. He never fights battles the way his father has done. In fact, the Bible lists his only major accomplishment as redigging his father's wells. That's what he accomplishes. When he tries to dig new wells for himself, the Canaanite people around him contest them and claim that he has no right to build. And you know what he does? He doesn't protest. He lets the wells go, and he just tries again somewhere else. Isaac makes peace with all of his enemies and never fights them. His wife is the assertive one. When Rebekah is pregnant with twin boys, God sends Rebekah the vision that says that the younger will rule over the older, that the younger son will inherit the covenant. And this goes against every custom and every law in the ancient Near East. But God does not tell Isaac any of this. It's as if God knows that it's going to be up to Rebekah to make the plan anyway. And it's tempting, I think, to place Isaac beneath his father Abraham and beneath his more famous son Jacob. Abraham and Jacob have all the exciting stories in Genesis. It makes me think of John Scott Harrison. I just recently learned about him. You may recognize his last name because he is the only person in history who is both the son and the father of a United States president. But John Harrison himself gave up his legal career, gave up his legislative ambitions, and he became a farmer. And he lived most of his life very quietly and uneventfully in North Bend, Ohio, which is a town I don't know anything about. You probably don't either. History will remember John Scott Harrison as little more than the father and the son of more famous men. And Isaac's a little bit like that, overshadowed by his father Abraham and his more adventurous son Jacob. And sometimes we might feel like that. We might feel like our lives, they don't matter that much because we can't boast of great accomplishments. We might feel overshadowed by siblings who have outperformed us or have outachieved us in some way. But the Isaac and Rebekah story tell us that a simple life can be good too. You know, when God speaks to Moses out of the burning bush and he introduces himself, he says, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. The God we worship is the God of Isaac, no less than the God of his more famous father and son. And I want to say something this morning in defense of Isaac. For the ladies, who would you like to be married to? Abraham sleeps with other women while he's married to Sarah and after Sarah is dead. Jacob, Isaac's son, is a scoundrel. He gains his inheritance by lying and cheating. He makes his fortune himself, yes, but he makes his fortune the same way he gets his inheritance, by lying and cheating. If Isaac is less adventurous and less exciting, he's also less sinful, more stable, more righteous. And a simple life can be a good life. And I would say as a pastor this, from my experience and what I've seen, good marriages are usually simple marriages too. Now, Isaac and Rebekah don't expand the legacy of Abraham and Sarah, but they do preserve it. They preserve it with stability and persistence. And to preserve a legacy, I would suggest, is just as important, if not more, than building one. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from Pascal. He was a French priest and a philosopher, and he said, all of humankind's problems come from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And when Rebekah meets Isaac, that is what he is doing. He's in a field. But some translations say that he's meditating in the field. He's sitting quietly in a field alone. And Rebekah recognizes the value in that. And I think maybe it's a fault in our culture that we don't admire men like Isaac, that we overlook them, that we don't recognize their virtues and their value. To live simply and quietly, to be able to sit quietly in a room alone. It reminds me of the old country song, one of my favorites, that ends like this. The wealthiest person is a pauper at times, compared to the man with a satisfied mind. Isaac has no adventures. He fights no battles. He remains still. But his value as a husband and as a man is that he can remain still, that he is stable, that he and Rebekah can preserve the legacy that they inherited from Abraham and Sarah and pass it down to us.